Hit. Okay, gotta hit 1,000. I'm holding like 4 targets. Back to On the Scout. This is gonna be part 4 of the Scout Scope review. And on this review, I'm gonna take the Scout rifle or Scout-like rifle with long eye relief optics, and I'm gonna see how far we can take a short-barreled carbine like that out to range. I have a course of fire set up out here in the mountains, in the field. This is not a shooting range, and I have shooting stations set up at the mid 600 yards, mid 700, mid 800, mid 900, and 1,000 yards. And I'm going to see how far I can make the Cooper Scout Rifle concept reach out and touch. As a control portion, I have a Sig Cross hunting rifle with an aftermarket barrel and a higher power optic. And this higher power optic has a turret and parallax adjustment, so it's kind of a run-of-the-mill, longer range, target focus optic to compare against. I'm also including the budget Leupold 1-4 power LPVO optic to show the performance difference, if there is one, between a conventional optic and a long eye relief optic. The ammo primarily used for this review is the Hornady Match 308 Winchester 168 grain boat tail hollow point. This ammo has a G1 ballistic coefficient of 0.45. The other ammo that's used a little bit in this review is the 6.5 Creedmoor 147 grain ELDM. This ammo has a G7 ballistic coefficient of 0.351. There's a zero confirmation of the 6.5 Creedmoor, the Sig Cross. And here is the group of 3 for the Leupold LVPO, the 1.5 to 4 power. And we hit the left third. Where was the hit?
Like center on the left.
What?
Center on the left.
Center on the left. Copy. That's right where I aimed then. One more to confirm it.
Like that on then.
646. Yeah. Too easy for the Scout.
I didn't see where it landed.
Try one more.
You're low by like a whole mil.
Low by a mil?
Yeah. Looks like you were like a mil to the left.
A mil left?
Yeah, like way left.
Okay, last one. And then we're calling it for this tiny scope. Excellent. Send one more. Oh, killed him. By a quarter of a mil.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, applied ballistics is a little bit off. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch over and trust what Chair Gunner is saying. Chair Gunner, it's a true velocity, it's saying 6.6. So that matches what the observer said. 6. Aiming center. Hit the shoulder?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, it's a little bit high. Landing left edge, center. You see the impact?
No, I did not.
You see where it impacted?
I think it was like on the very left edge center.
Okay, I'm aiming a little bit further, maybe 0.3 for wind. I saw it miss left edge.
That was a miss. That was his left shoulder. You were like an 1/8 of a mil to the left. And center.
Okay. Target edge.
You were like 1/4 mil low.
I heard a hit though.
Oh.
It's on the target.
I didn't see where it hit on the target.
I said one more, same hold. I heard a hit. It was left edge-ish. I'm gonna go ahead and hold on target, third to the left of the target, center.
You hit it. I think that was like center.
Center?
Yeah.
Okay, 3 out of 3. Spotters on?
Yep. Yep. Lower right.
Lower right. Didn't see.
I think it might have been further right to the mid. I can't tell.
I went to the left edge then.
Same spot as your first impact.
770, -6 degrees. To make this scope actually reach this range, I'm actually turning my magnification down even further.
See, just short.
Short.
Outside.
All right, holding at the top of the head.
Didn't see anything.
Didn't see that one either.
Hold center again.
Nothing.
Holding bottom left corner. We're kind of walking this shit in.
Hit.
Good hit. I'm at 66%. Left bottom edge holding again.
Roger. Down right about 1 full mil.
Hold down. Hold lower.
Impact was low, 1 full mil. Hold high.
Okay, hold high. Ah, good hit.
Good hit.
7 yards.
Nothing.
Holding center then. No, holding left edge.
Nothing.
You don't see anything?
Nope, negative.
Holding bottom center.
Negative.
I saw bullet impact just at the base, which is pretty cool that I can see bullet impact with this CrimsonTrace. I'm gonna hold neck level. Spotters on.
Spotters on.
Yep.
Impact.
Oh.
Right.
Oh,
Right
I heard a hit.
I think it was right lower impact.
Right lower. I'm holding the third BDC line down. Let's go ahead and shoot a few more while we're hot.
That was high.
High.
High right. High left. Leftish. Kind of mid left. High mid left.
High mid left.
So high right.
I think it was high right. Yeah.
I'm just chasing rounds all over the place with this Hilux BDC. The BDC and the turret aren't interacting well. The app isn't giving us good data, so I'm going to call it right here at the gate for the Hilux 2-7.
That was also right.
Yeah,
How far right?
I can barely see.
It was right high roughly.
Right high roughly. Last one and we reset this whole thing. Okay, aiming bottom left off target.
Impact. Center A zone.
Center A zone. Oh, cool. Oh. So based on the walking, we're creating dope as we go. I'm not thinking to bracket the target. So let's keep shooting while the barrel is settled in. It's probably a bit warm, but
Is that right? I couldn't see.
All the vapor trails I couldn't see.
I think high, right?
Yeah, it was high and to the left.
how far left?
Probably not very far, probably a couple inches to the left, but it was still kind of mid left.
You were high, like about a target.
High about a target. All right, holding low, holding left.
Impact lower
edge of the plate.
To the right?
Oh no, right edge of the plate.
Right.
Yeah. Didn't see.
Didn't see that one.
I'm holding the same spot. I'm basically bracketing around, half down, half to the left.
Right, full target. Good
Now wind's
elevation.
picking up now. I think we're over 4 miles an hour gust.
Yeah, wind's blowing pretty hard.
I'm gonna go ahead and call it here for the SightMark 2 to 7. It's just that with the winds kind of swirling a little bit here in the canyon today, I just can't get the right wind holds, and I can't get consistent wind holds because there's no little reticle to allow me a consistent wind hold with this SightMark, just the Center Plus.
Low right.
How low?
Low, about a target. Right, a width and a half. Target width and a half.
So right a target width and a half.
Yeah, 1.5 target widths.
That's quite a bit of a change. Okay, let's try to do it. The wind is picking up.
Impacts. Can't see where on the target.
Yeah, I can't see her. It looked like it was left to you.
Yeah, I think it's in that lower 4 o'clock string of rounds.
Okay.
Just under it.
Just under. Short.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right off.
Just
Right
off the
edge.
right edge.
Yeah, right off the
The
edge.
wind is really screwing me here.
I did not see that.
I didn't see it either. A lot of wind.
Impacts.
Shit. Holding. I'm holding
Left.
3 MRAD to the left.
Left
You can
edge
repeat that.
delta impact.
What?
Left edge impact. Good elevation.
Okay, sending again.
Didn't see.
One more. Call it off. The wind is strong.
Off the left edge. Good elevation.
Off left edge.
Left edge.
Holding too much wind.
Just off the lower left corner.
Well, given the really difficult wind conditions, so 2 hits, not quite the two out of 3 I'd like, but I think this warrants us moving to 880 yards.
Didn't see. I don't see a vapor trail.
Was that a hit? Didn't
No.
sound like it.
No.
For the last one, we'll call it off. Can't even see a vapor trail. I'll hold 3 MRAD over left.
Nothing.
One more. Come on, Viiko, you can do it. At this point in the review, I had the opportunity to travel to Oklahoma and shoot one of the scout scopes in a square range that had a lot of dust, which makes it a lot easier to spot the misses and make corrections.
Miss to the right.
Miss to the right, okay. Wind's carrying me. I'm gonna go ahead and hold just off the left edge of the target.
Hit. I think it was the right shoulder.
Okay.
Miss high and a little bit to the right. Full
Saw
target
that.
high.
High and right. Look, I saw that hit. I'm gonna aim a little bit below the target and a little bit further to the left.
Didn't see it.
I saw it hit the left edge. Miss off the left edge.
Headshot.
Oh, nice.
Dead center head.
Okay. Let's try one
Oh, maybe
more.
it was dead center body. Oh well. Dead center head again.
So I'm using the top of the top duplex. The top duplex at 31.4 MOA to make that hit. So it's a little bit of discrepancy between the calculator and the scope turret here.
You hit between those two targets, so
Okay,
you
I
hit
got
about a full target to the right of the man.
I'm gonna hold more. The wind is pretty strong here. I saw the impact. We're in a nice range.
Hit.
Wow, I'm holding the right duplex. And one more, 850.
Hit.
Good. Oh, yeah, I see it swinging. Excellent.
Hit.
All right, it's a bit easy. Let's send one more. This course of fire is a little bit easier than what I've been doing in Washington.
Miss barely right.
Okay, wind's picking up. I'm gonna send one a bit further to the left.
I think it impacted just barely short of it, maybe an inch or two short. Miss barely right.
Yeah, the performance is pretty low right now. I'm gonna aim even further to the left, considering I think we have a 9-mile-an-hour crosswind.
Hit.
Okay. So this Vortex was doing all right at 888 yards. Got a few hits, but not consistently. So let's just, for the fun of it, push this optic to 999 yards. So it needs 47 turret elevation, and I dialed every single MOA I can. And of course, the last little dial click was 47. So let's try to send this.
Miss right.
Okay,
Around a
saw
full
that
target.
hit. Right, we'll hold more wind.
Possibly about a foot in front of the target as well.
Higher and left.
Miss barely right.
Oh, hell. And the wind is really carrying us here. There's a wind. I'm feeling right wind right now, but actually all the hits are going to the right target.
Miss way off to the right and way forward.
Come on, give me one hit 1,000.
Right around the same place. Or a little left.
Miss about a full target to the right. Maybe a target and a half. Miss about 3 targets to the right.
And I'm holding really far left.
Yeah.
Okay, got to hit 1,000. I'm holding like 4 targets off to the left. Send one more. Second hit at 1,000. 999.
I didn't have it on trigger, so maybe this will work. Maybe
Miss forward. It missed too low.
Short.
Yeah. Thank you. Hit.
Ooh. 2 hits at 1,000 with this little rifle and this little scope. Okay. Not the best performance at a fairly large target at 1,000 yards, but got some hits, so happy about that. Welcome to the debrief. Thanks for crawling through all that shooting data with us. I have a special guest to help debrief all the information we collected. This is Steve Clifford from YouTube channel Cliffy109.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, just for the viewers that aren't subscribed to both channels, a little bit about yourself, your qualifications, and what your hobbies are.
Okay, well, good deal. First of all, thanks for having me, and thanks for asking me to do this. You have done the Scout Rifle community a huge service by these video reviews that you've been doing of the Scout scopes. It's just invaluable for somebody looking at Scout scopes and trying to get set up with one. But so where I come from is I started out being self-taught, meaning I started back in the early 1990s reading Jeff Cooper and learning about what his views were on rifles in general. And then when I decided that it was time for me to get a rifle, I wanted to emulate a Scout rifle as best I could. And I dabbled around with that and ended up, I think I got my first Scout scope in about 98 or 99, right in there sometime. And then and that was on a Remington Model 7. I hunted with that for a number of years. Then I got a Steyr Scout and then several more, and used a Scout scope very successfully. I trained with it. I practiced with it. I learned as much as I could. And then I realized that it was costing me dear. It was costing me opportunities on animals, and I'll get into that later if you want. But I switched over to an LPVO for a number of years. And then when scope manufacturers started coming out with variable power Scout scopes, I thought that might be a solution. And I tried variable power Scout scopes for a while. And then I got into some more formalized training. I took 2 classes from Randy Kane. I took 2 of the 5.5-day classes out at the Whittington Center from Tom Russell. And I took a 2-day class from Richard Mann down in Alabama when he was doing some stuff with Steyr University. So a lot of real training with scout and practical rifles. And I went through one of Tom Russell's class. I went through with just an absolute classic Steyr with the fixed 2.5 power Leupold scout scope. I got, I won the shoot off, and I was very happy with the performance there. So I've learned a lot about scout scopes, and I've written a lot about scout scopes and what makes them good and what makes them not so good. But then lately I started to I realized that the long range shooting community was doing a lot of things that were really unimagined before. And I started trying to figure out, how far can I push a scout scope? How far can I push a scout rifle at first? And then I realized that the weak point in that was the scope, and I ended up switching up and doing some other things, but I'm still exploring what a true general purpose rifle can do. And that's led to all sorts of things that I'm sure we can discuss.
Thanks, Steve. My background, although it doesn't go back as far with the scout rifles as yours does, I started my trained shooting career at Gunsight 270, which is a pretty similar course to a lot of the big scout rifle names and general purpose rifle names you listed. Ed Head was my instructor. So all these men that are listed, may or may not matter to the viewer, but all these people actually met and learned from Cooper in the early days when he was formulating that concept of the general purpose rifle and the scout rifle. Like during the that kind of like the early teens of the 2000s, the long range rifle scene was getting huge, and I was kind of getting swept into it, of course. And the scout rifle course, even though it was very informative and taught a lot of fundamental skills, a lot of field skills, when I actually asked Ed Head and the other instructor, they weren't the long range guys at Gunsight. So they're like, well, just hold a little bit higher. Use the BDC line for 400. And there was really not that much science to it. They're really focusing on the scout rifle as a 300 yard and in, like specialized, or not specialized, but 300 yard and in focused platform.
Well, it's interesting you use that term. And so, yeah, now we call it specialized. And this is where the long range community has really changed things, because up until they really started getting going here about 10 to 15 years ago, general purpose rifle meant out to about 300 yards, or just barely beyond maximum point blank range. And anyone who doesn't understand maximum point blank range, that's the range at which, if you sight your rifle incorrectly, which means you have a zero between about 200, maybe 225, the bullet never goes more than about 2.5 inches above or 2.5 inches below the line of sight. And where it drops more than 2.5 below the line of sight, that's where you'd have to start adjusting or holding. And that range is roughly 250 yards with a 308, and with most center fire cartridges, Magnums will go a little longer, but maximum point blank range was really it. And that's what people consider to be general purpose or practical. And in a lot of cases, that still is, the general purpose range, and it's still what is really practical. But the long range community has shown that you can be practically accurate out a lot further than that. And I'm not advocating for long range hunting. Long range hunting is a different story than shooting for either, combat shooting or Second Amendment type of things, or just target or fun shooting. But in terms of practical use, yeah, we actually can go out a lot further now. And so I think that reevaluating what we mean by general purpose is a valid thing to do. But that's not that it was to say that it was invalid at the time that Cooper came up with the whole concept.
I can definitely tell from your blog posts and your YouTube videos that you're kind of in the same mind. Like, how far can these more classic turn of the century GPRs and scout rifles reach out? I didn't go for the LPVO or the specialized hunting scopes with more features. I tried to make this review about the scout scope, the variable power scout scope and the fixed power scout scope. And, like to maybe good and bad. I got very good results on part that was part 2. No, that was part 3 of my review series, shooting out to 500 yards and a little bit further. And like almost every single optic I had just could get on, use the BDC, or even use the turret and just like start drilling a 500-yard, vital zone, like human-sized lung, so very more tall than wide. And I thought it'd be easy. I'll just grab these variable power scout scopes. Some of them have turrets, some of them have BDCs, and I'm just gonna trick my way into long range shooting. It'll be just a bit easy. But
well, yeah, and you see the fact that you hit anything with those scopes is a testament to your shooting skill. It really is, because you're taking them so far beyond their design concepts. And this is something that I think a lot of people miss with the scout scope. The whole purpose of a scout scope, the way that it's set up and the reason that it is so far forward and fixed power, the reason for all that is because of how you use it, how the intended use was. But those same attributes make it really bad for long range shooting, and I'll explain. So a scout scope like this one, this is the Leupold 2.5 power. This is the classic. This is the OG.
The classic.
Right. So it's got between about 9 to 12 inches worth of eye relief. So the distance between this ocular lens and your face, 9-10 inches, maybe up to 12 if you scoot it forward a little bit. It's supposed to be that way, and it's supposed to have a very small ocular lens, and that's because of how you employ it. So the whole idea is you see a target downrange, you see it with your naked eyes, not through binoculars. You identify a target, you can see what that target is, you know that that's a target that you need to shoot. The gun comes up to your face. The ocular lens does not occlude very much of your vision. It takes up a very small part of your vision because it's so far away from your eye. And because it's only 2.5 power, Cooper said between 2 to 3 powers, the maximum that this will work, your brain plays this cool little trick. Your eyes are still focused downrange. You're still focused on an object, on the target with your naked eyes, but you just have this little section of your vision that is magnified 2.5 times. And your brain can accept that overall field of view, that overall image. It's a neat thing when it actually happens. And a lot of people who have scout scopes, I think, make the mistake of bearing down and looking through the scope. That's not how you use it. The only time you look through the scope is at the last moment, right before you press the trigger. You need to confirm sight alignment. And you'll confirm that by focusing on the reticle for long enough to confirm that sight alignment, press the trigger, and then you run the bolt and start over. So it's a very, very different aiming process with different things that are of benefit. And that forward-mounted scope is great, but it also means that you have a very limited field of view. And that's not a big deal for using it as a scout scope. It's supposed to be that way. But when you go out to longer ranges, you need field of view because now you're looking through the scope because you need to identify a target. You need to find the target in the scope first. You're not really identifying it with your eyes and then just pulling it up for a snapshot. So now you run into a problem. The longer your eye relief, the smaller your field of view. Field of view is a function of two things. It's length of pulse, it's length of eye relief, and it's a factor of your magnification. The higher the magnification, the lower your field of view. So now you get a scout scope, which already has a very, very small field of view, and you're trying to find this target. Well, now you look at some of the variables, a 2 to 7, you crank up to 7 power. Well, now that limited field of view just dropped down to nothing. You can see absolutely nothing in your field of view. So now finding that target becomes very difficult because you don't have any terrain references. If you can find your target, once you shoot, you're going to lose it completely. And then you're not going to be able to see your impact. It makes long-range shooting just absolutely impossible because long-range shooting, you need a decent field of view. These guys that are putting the 5 to 25 power scopes on their rifles very rarely crank it up to 25 power because of field of view issues. They want to see what's around the target. They want so that when they recoil, they never lose their target so they can see the impact. Those are very, very important things when you get out past about 400 or 500 yards. So the benefits of the scout scope work absolutely against you when you get into those longer ranges. And that's one of the things I found out pretty quickly when I started trying to push the limits of the scout scope.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. All the optics I was using for the longer range portion and the 500-yard medium range portion, I was zooming up to maximum to allow me to use the BDC, which is they're all second focal planes. There's no front focal plane scout scopes. And the small field of view, it was, as you said, it wasn't that much of a detriment. But usually when the recoil hit me, it's a 7-pound rifle, full power 308. I'm shooting 168 grain bullets out of it to try to get a little bit more ballistic coefficient. But that recoil hit me, and I usually lose the image immediately. The whole scout rifle review project for this long range portion, I was relying pretty heavily on the spotters to see any of the impacts and make corrections based on just the talkback between the shooter and the spotter. Once in a while, I'd have a really good position built, and I'd actually absorb somehow, even with the small muzzle compensator on the end of the scout, I actually absorb all the recoil and end up exactly back on target, almost like a miracle. I'm like, whoa. And I'd see the impact. I'm like, I see the impact. And the spotter says, what? So what? But the spotters, they're all volunteers and they're not scout rifle shooters. They're not understanding I'm taking the full brunt of the recoil and somehow falling me by chance back onto target.
Right.
And it was more often than not, I'd get jostled so much. And by the time the rifle settled back down onto the light tripod, all the dirt impact or the foliage shifting around would already be over.
Right.
So that clearly didn't help. You have some experience shooting these scout rifles at extended ranges. What are some of your tips you use to control recoil to actually try to stay on target with the stayer?
Well, so I did take this rifle out to a long-range shooting class, and I didn't really run it through its paces. I basically just made sure that I could get an impact at 600 yards, and I could. But this is not truly a scout scope. This is one that Leupold, in all their infinite wisdom, discontinued. And it's not truly a scout scope because, as you can see, the eye relief is only about 6 inches. The ocular lens is a lot bigger than the other scout scopes. And that means that you don't get that cool little trick with, part of it magnified and your whole vision taken in at both. You're looking through that scope a lot more. But when you start looking for targets in that ocular lens, because it's so much closer to your eye and it's a bigger lens to begin with, it's got 50% more surface area. It's a lot easier to see the targets. It's a lot easier to find things. I put on an aftermarket Kenton turret on it, and I was able to dial out to 600 yards and make impacts pretty easily on a full-size IPSC target. But yeah, so there's a real difference in shooting technique. When you go to all of the scout and practical rifle classes, you're going into slung prone, which means you sling up, and then your elbow is the base that is supporting the rifle. And that means that your body has to be canted off to the side, and you 20 to 30 degrees off of center. You have to do that because otherwise you couldn't reach your arm out and your elbow out to get underneath it to support the gun. Well, if your body is in that position, you can't have a true natural point of aim. Natural point of aim means a lot more than I thought it did after taking some practical rifle classes. Natural point of aim means that not only do the crosshairs stay in position when you close your eyes and take a breath, but it stays in position after the shot. When the shot goes off, it rocks straight back. And if your body is in line with the line of the bore, you're going to be able to do that. If it's cocked off to the side, it's going to bend in like that under recoil. And if you notice, all of your shots probably, if you're supporting the gun underneath you, you're always going to be aiming to the left after the shot. After the shot, you're going to realize I got to come back to the right if you're a right-handed shooter. That's just naturally where it's going to go. So there is a difference in shooting technique. And that's why they're using bipods and other types of devices so that they can get lined up directly behind the gun for the shooting that is done at longer ranges, as opposed to the short practical ranges where seeing the impact is just not such a big deal.
Now, less related to the optics portion of this review, I chose 168 grain ammo to shoot. I probably should have chose 178 or 175 looking back on it now. The ammo I ended up choosing had a G1 ballistic coefficient, so I just punched that in the calculator and ran with it. And, you know, like the 168 maybe didn't cut wind as well as a heavier grain projectile. Possibly. I'm not a ballistician.
Yeah, I mean, I use a 175, but I only use a 175 because I found a cheap source of M118 long-range ammo. You know, at basically $1 a round, it's a very, very cost-efficient way to shoot, and I found a good supply of it. I don't know that it's that much of a difference. I know that a lot of rifles actually prefer the 168s, but the 175s are great. But and in theory, they do buck the wind a little bit better. They are more aerodynamic. But I don't know if that's a big enough difference. If one shoots well in your gun, I don't know that it would make a big enough difference to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, at the ranges, I noticed immediately from most of these optics, the optics riding on top of this rifle, the test platform is a 16-inch barrel. You know, there's not that much muzzle velocity left for the 308, even with a lighter grain bullet like the 168. I was getting carried by the wind. If you watch some of that footage in the shooting portion, the shots were going to the right, and it'd be hard to see the impact. The spotters sometimes would miss it. You know, they're just kind of free-eyeing it standing there. And then by the time they figured it out, after 3 or 4 rounds into the dirt next to the target, they said, oh, it's hitting to the right. And then a correction he made by the time I actually made the correction and had to communicate, like, okay, how many target widths left? We were like discussing it and debating it. By the time that information got over to me and the shot was made again, the wind had already shifted the other direction or went back to center. There's a lot of drawbacks for shooting a rifle with no reticle. I couldn't actually make quick corrections other than spotter talk.
Well, I don't know if you can hear it, but the wind just really picked up here. I'm on my back porch. But yeah, wind is a huge thing when you get out beyond about 300-400 yards. And that's where you really need a reticle that has marks in it to give you some reference point. And a lot of the scout scopes, some of them have a BDC lines, but none of them have wind hold marks. Well, it's the wind hold marks you really need, because at longer range, I don't like or trust the BDC anyway, because the BDC is always set up to a specific range with a specific load and velocity and all of that. And you can't guarantee that's going to be precise. It might get you in the right ballpark. It might be good enough for lobbing, rounds down range to keep someone's head down. But in terms of a precision shot, the BDC really isn't the way to go anyway. But what you do need are those marks on the horizontal line to give you some reference for wind. Most long-range shooters, myself included, we dial for elevation and then hold for wind. So that would mean, figure out your range, figure out, okay, I'm, at this distance, I need to be at, 11.1 mils. So you turn it for 11.1 mils or 5 mils or 6.3 or whatever. You dial for the elevation, but then you look at the target and say, you know what, we got a pretty fair amount of wind. I'm going to give it, 1.2 mils right. So you take that shot, you see where the impact is. You're like, oh, I need to go a little bit more. I need to go about another 0.4 more. So you move out and you hold for a little bit more wind. but you have to have those reference points on the reticle. You also have to have enough elevation in your turret to be able to do that. So some of the scout scopes, they never envision, you know, needing to dial out to, you know, 700, 800, 900 yards or 1,000 yards. You know, you've only got 60 MOA worth of adjustment in the turret. That's 30 up and 30 down. That, memory serves me, that'll probably get you about 700 yards tops, and then you've absolutely maxed the thing out. But yeah, that's some of the other things that are shortcomings with the scout scope. Once you take it beyond its design parameters.
And looking back to my footage, I took the Vortex out to Oklahoma because I had an opportunity to travel to a proper long range gun range. And I was actually using the duplex post. And the way the wind was cutting across at my 9 o'clock, I was basically holding duplex. Okay, one full duplex hold. I'm holding 22 inches at 100 yards. I don't even know how much that is at 1,000. There's no way to know unless you calculate it. So maybe 22 inches times 1,000, 100 yards, so 220 inches hold. It's approximate. So I was holding the full duplex left of the target at some points. So like trimming over, like holding duplex on top of the target and the full duplex to the left to hold the wind. Yeah. I was doing silly stuff like that. It wasn't precision shooting. It's definitely a little bit of Kentucky and a bit of luck going on there.
Well, one of the classes that I took, this is when I still had an MOA scope, and I remember there was one time where the 1,000-yard target was requiring 22 MOA worth of a wind hold. 22 MOA, that's a fair piece. That is a lot of wind that you're holding for, but it's doable if you have the right reticle.
Yeah, having some sort of reference points on the reticle helps. The scout scopes are all automatically hobbled there just to not have that quick holdover for wind or even misses. You know, a lot of it wasn't just the wind. It was just me, you know, misreading the reticle or misdialing or misunderstanding the units. You know, I was going from mils, MOA, and SMOA. And who knows if the scopes that said inches per 100 yards were actually that or just MOA mislabeled. I don't know, but there wasn't any precision going on. There's a lot of Kentucky going on for me for trying to shoot scout scopes, but I was getting some hits at range with Kentucky.
Like that's a testament to your shooting skill more than anything. But
I
don't think that could be duplicated very easily.
I know, but I included the control footage of me shooting the 6.5 Creedmoor Sig Cross just to show, like, hey, this is an ample size target. An IPSC size target isn't a tiny target, and you know, even an average long range shooter like myself, I can just use the tools, use the turret, use the reticle, shoot. If I miss, immediately correct and send another one. Yep. And it's very clockwork. It's very mechanical. It's like routine now. That sort of shooting is routine now. Like an average guy can just do it. Use the tools, use a modern caliber, and do it.
And that's a great point. And this is the thing is that, you know, when I was starting out in rifles, 1,000-yard shot was not normal. That was something that was so specialized as to be just unthinkable for the common shooter. But it's not anymore. And the long range community has brought it to where it can be done. The guys at Bang Steel, which is in southwestern Virginia, and I've taken a class from them and been to their matches. I've done a couple of private things with them. They came up with this concept they call the Machaira. And what the Machaira is just it's a biblical term referring to a short sword, which was just a general purpose utility sword. It did everything from defense to sacrifices to hacking down vines or whatever. It was just a general purpose, do everything. And they call their concept the Machaira, and it's basically you just take your average hunting rifle, a 30-06 that is in your closet already. You add a couple of things to it. You add a 20 MOA base. That means that the base is camped at 20 MOA. There's some good reasons for that, and there's no reason not to have a 20 MOA base. It doesn't handicap you in anything. Add that, a Harris bipod, and then a scope that it goes up to at least 9 power. So your basic 3 to 9 scope, as long as it has a turret that you can index, meaning that it doesn't even have to be a target turret. It can be a capped turret, but once you get your 0, you can set it to 0. And then you'd know how many clicks you need to go out to longer ranges. Well, with that basic of a rifle, that simple of a setup, they can teach you to shoot out to easily 800, and a little bit of training and work, they can get you out to 1,000, 1,200 yards with something as basic as a 3 to 9 scope on a Savage 30-06 with a 20 MOA base. It's really not that complicated. It can be done. There's ways to get it done better, but if you're looking for simple and easy, that's the way to do it, and it can be done nowadays, just not with a scout scope.
Yeah, it's not helping you for sure. Another thing that wasn't helping me, I can't prove it was causing me to miss, so I like to blame it, was that every scout scope I reviewed does not have a parallax side focus. So obviously, like, parallax isn't everything. And one of my first long-range instructors, Kalen Wojnik, he told us that in the Marine Corps as a scout sniper, they're told to set their parallax settings to 300 and fix it. They're not allowed to adjust it. So they had to do their fundamentals, their cheek rest, and like knowing their body position and having repeatability built into the rifle in other ways to reduce parallax is what they did instead. And he says nowadays everyone has parallax, so just use the parallax. And so the Sig Cross with the Leupold has a parallax dial out to 600 and then infinity. So probably 700-ish maybe is where it stops, and then from then on parallax error begins. So Steve, what is your experience shooting super far with scopes with no parallax?
Okay, that's a great question, and actually is the reason that I sold one of the scopes that I had. I had been trying to find just the perfect MPVO, mid-power variable optic, and I ended up settling on the Night Force SHV 2.5 to 10. I figured at 10 power, it's not great at 1,000, but it can do it. The U.S. military did it for 25 years. But I got that scope, I took it out to range, and I wasn't happy with it. And parallax is so misunderstood, and I'm still trying to fully grasp it. You know, people refer to it as a side focus because it does focus it. So anything, you know, beyond about 300-400 yards, you start dialing this thing and realize, oh, my image just got sharper. And the first time, if you look through a scope that doesn't have parallax adjustment, and you look at something 700, 800, 900 yards away, it looks fine. It looks fine until you look at it through a scope that has parallax adjustment that's properly adjusted. And then you're like, oh my God, my scope sucks. That's part of it. It's just that sharpness and crispness of the image. But the second part of it is the reticle has to be in the same plane as the image that you're looking at. And that's what it's adjusting. Once those are in the same plane, then if your head is slightly off center or something like that, the reticle doesn't move. But if it's not adjusted correctly, the reticle moves, and it can move enough to induce some horrific misses. So I'm trying to get into the habit right now, and this is part of my training and my learning, is that when I dial my elevation on my turret, I also dial the parallax. I'm trying to remember to dial them both at the same time so that I'm always on. And I know it makes a difference. I saw it make a difference with that other scope. I won't have a scope again that doesn't have a parallax adjustment. It disappoints me. Leupold just came out with an incredible scope. The Mark IV, they've got a 2 to 10 that it checks every single box I wanted, but no parallax adjustment. Like, you've got to be kidding me.
I mean, just like the Night Force here, right? Like, sure, like I think that Night Force model was on like wasn't it on the SPR or a military type rifle like that, a designated marksman's type rifle? No, the one that I was using was it's the SHV. The SHV is their hunting and varminter. Okay. And it's not their tactical line. The NXS, they've got a 2.5 to 10,
that does have parallax adjustment. It's a much older design scope, but that one checks all the boxes. That's just $1,600, which I didn't have.
Yeah. Like, obviously, like the money would just solve the parallax problem. I mean, I got a couple 1,000-yard hits with the scout rifle with a 100-yard parallax. It wasn't easy. I think it was a lot easier to make those like SIG cross hits, like bing, bing, bing. It wasn't even a question. It's like it hit one before the spotter could even call where it hit on the plate. I was already sending another one and another one. He just, okay, fine. He's just got it. I don't need to call in corrections. Yep. He's hitting it. Those 1,000-yard hits were like hard fought to even get it. I don't know why it was so difficult was just the parallax. Obviously, the variables, having a short barrel, having a less aerodynamic bullet, having lower velocity played into it. Parallax for me is still a bit of a black magic. I Googled on the internet how much parallax error could occur with some of these scopes, and I was getting the number around maybe 1,000 yards, like 4-something inches. I don't know if that means 4 inches at 100 yards or 4 inches at 1,000 or more, but I'm going to blame some of my problems on the parallax, and the comments can correct it. If we give wrong information, on YouTube, the first comment's going to be like 1,000 upvotes, angry, like, you don't know anything. Why didn't you know this is a formula for parallax? But I don't know how much parallax error was there. I just know that it was there, and it wasn't helping the situation.
Yep. Yeah. So what else you got?
So let's see here. So the shooting here at the shooting for the first part of the review was all in the field-like conditions. Obviously, there was no dust, there was no sand, there was no backdrop berm. It was all foliage and ferns. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the targets were painted white for me to easily see the hits on them. When it came to having a formal gun range that was just dust and just denuded kind of grazing land where cows had mowed all the foliage back, the scout rifle, it almost felt okay. It felt like, oh yeah, if I had started in Oklahoma with the scout scope versus in Washington in the jungle, I think I would have a different opinion in this review with you right now. Okay. Because I was comparing a rifle that has a lot of drawbacks optically in a controlled, high visibility environment versus an environment versus like a jungle.
You want an unpopular opinion?
Like, go ahead.
The scout scope excels on a controlled range. In a scout rifle or practical rifle class, you've got a group of 10 guys on a line. Well, that means you have 10 target stands downrange. You can see those target stands. They're very clear. You know exactly where they are. My target is the third one from the left, so I focus on third one from the left. On the whistle, my gun comes up. I'm still looking at third target on the left. I shoot it. I make the hit. I'm all happy. Man, what a great scope. This thing was so fast. But you take it out into the field and things change. The reason, I'll tell you the story of why I gave up on the scout scope the first time. And I've been hunting with it for a number of years. And I'd made some really amazing shots with it. I'd harvested a number of deer, including 2 that were on a run. They're pretty decent range, at 100, 120 yards, these deer on the run and just basically a snapshot, and crumpled them because I knew and understood how that system worked. One day, I was kind of stalking around this property, and I came up over a hill. It's 2 in the afternoon, broad daylight, not a cloud in the sky. I look down in this valley. This valley is between 130, 150 yards away. It's just some overgrown grass, some scrub brush, and some cedar trees. I look through my binoculars and I can see a herd of deer walking through here. And it was like 6, 8 deer just meandering through here, not running, oblivious to my presence. So I sat down. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I loop up in a sitting position with my scout scope. I look through the scope. I can't see the deer. Can't see them. Like, did they run when I was getting in position? Put up my binoculars? No, they're right there. Back to the scope. I can't see them. And I'm looking, through this little ocular lens that I'm looking for hints of deer. I'm looking for an ear or a tail flick or the flat of a back, and I just can't make out enough detail to say that is a deer and I can shoot it. And then that was the moment, and I'd given up one or two other shots in low light conditions, but this one really irritated me so badly. And it just illustrated that, yes, it runs great on a square range. It runs great in a class and something where you have these nice, highly visible targets. But when you get into targets that you have to search for, that you've got to actually look through the glass, it's just got so many weaknesses. It just drove me absolutely crazy. That was what caused me to give up the first time. And then second time, the Leupold really redeemed it, gave me a lot of hope, and then they discontinued it.
Like the VXR is a legendary optic. It was like almost the Scout Scope entering the next generation, and before that bud even blossomed, it just got hacked by Leupold, like a lot of their products do.
Yep.
And then soon after that, they hacked the classic two power, which our favorite, the Scout Scope. They hacked that, and then of course I'm still bitter over that. And then all they left us with was that VXR Freedom Scout, which
I had one of those scopes. That's not a bad scope. I never minded it so bad because it had that shorter eye relief. It had that 6-inch eye relief. I felt it wasn't bad. I was using it side by side against a Burris 2-7, and I would take the Leupold 10 times over that Burris. But that's my experience anyway.
I mean, obviously the Leupold glass just stomps the Burris glass, but there's no features. At least Burris thought like, hey, this Scout rifleman might want to shoot beyond 300 yards.
Well, and that's a good point. Again, we get into design parameters of the whole package, though. I mean, if the whole package is meant to shoot out the 300 yards, what do you need a BDC reticle for? It's kind of what I looked at. But yeah, I was very happy with that scope, and I would not hesitate to recommend it to somebody who wanted to stick with the Scout platform and the Scout zeitgeist of it. But you can probably tell I'm a little soured out on the whole Scout, the Scout scope idea. I love the general purpose concept, and again, they do great within their design parameters, but design parameters just I don't consider to be general purpose anymore.
And so another thing for dream scopes, can you tell us the scope that you're currently using on your Scout rifle and general purpose rifle, and then tell us about your dream GPR or Scout scope?
Okay, so I ended up through one of the most bizarre and unusual trades in the history of mankind. I ended up with this rifle and scope combination with no money out of my pocket. It was the coolest thing ever. I can't get into it here, but this was what I wanted. It's a SIG Cross in 6.5 Creedmoor. It has the Vortex Strike Eagle 3-18, and the 3-18 I'm really, really liking. I just had it out yesterday, and I ran some Scout rifle drills. I ran the a modified version of rifle bounce, and Randy Kane has pointed out that is not actually rifle bounce, and I get it. But the point was to be able to see, can I get this thing up into action quickly? Can I move with it? Can I get drop into a sitting? Can I go over to prone? And I did it in about 17 and a half seconds. And I was very happy with the results. Now, it's not a Scout rifle. It's not a Scout scope. This thing weighs, as it sets right here, including the suppressor, it's about 10 pounds. If I put a carbon fiber barrel on it, I could probably drop it down to about 9. I've been thinking about that since I'm into it for nothing so far. I could probably afford to do that. But a 3-18 is a good, in the long range community, they consider this a crossover scope. with 18 being the max. I try not to max out the magnification. There's some reasons for that. You start losing image quality and other things. So I try and max out at about 16. And at 16 power, I've got plenty of magnification up to 1200 yards. It's got a good reticle. It's got one of the Christmas tree reticles, but it's not too busy, not too much information. It's mils. It has a huge amount of elevation adjustment. If you get the MOA version, it's got 154 MOA of total internal adjustment, which is just insane. I mean, that'll get you, without even putting a 20 MOA base, you can go way beyond 1200 yards, just dialing. So fantastic scope, and it doesn't weigh 30 ounces. It's sniffing 30 ounces, but it's not quite at 30. And a lot of scopes in this category are going to be way over 30 ounces. So relatively light, good feature set, illuminated reticle, parallax adjustment. Very, very happy with it. If I were to spec out the ultimate rifle for a general purpose rifle, this is probably a little much. I'd like something a little lighter weight. I would really like to keep it down under 20 ounces. I want a dialing turret, parallax, illuminated reticle. Something in the 2 to 12 range, I think would be about ideal. Athlon makes one that comes in at about 24 ounces. And that is one that I've got my eye on. That one might end up on my Steyr here in the not too distant future. And then be able to compare that to this. That will end up being a little bit more handy, a little bit more, I don't know, at least more in line with the scout rifle concept. Won't be a scout, obviously.
Scouty.
It'll be scouty. Scouty with an eye. And I know what the comments will be. I get it. But I have just absolutely fallen in love with the Sig Cross. I love this thing. The more I shoot it, the more confident I get with it. I've learned some things about sling use and crossbody carry with the sling. With crossbody carry, you can get away with a little bit heavier of a rifle and still be able to be considered handy. You know, I see you've got the Spartan bipod on yours. I actually have the Spartan Javelin for this one, which is a little bit more steady, a little bit bigger, but you know, same real, very, very quick on and off, so I don't have to walk around with the bipod attached. So I just am a huge fan of this, and it's got the folding stock, so it fits in a case, even with the suppressor on it. The case that I have for this thing looks like a guitar case.
Yeah, it's a Carby, like a little AR-15 case. It just goes right into it.
Yep. So yeah, this is right now my absolute favorite. I haven't given up on the Steyrs. I'm not selling my Steyrs, but I'm going to put the Athlon scope on the one and then leaving the VXR on the other.
Now my optic on my Sig Cross I mean, great minds think alike. We almost have identical rifles. I've gotten the carbon fiber barrel already to cut a bit of weight, but I went with the second focal plane just because that was the lightest scope that fit most specs. What is your opinion on having a second focal plane versus first focal plane for a general purpose optic?
If your maximum magnification is no more than 12 power, I think you're fine with the second focal plane. And I'm very strong on that opinion. If it's a first focal plane, that's fine. But the whole idea for anyone watching this at this point, you know, the focal plane means that if it's a front focal plane, when you dial down to 2 power, the reticle, you just can't even see what little subtensions are with the little marks on the reticle. You're basically just using it kind of as a duplex, if you can see it at all. Some of them, they almost disappear into the background. But then as you crank it up to higher power, the reticle grows with the image. And as the reticle grows with the image, and because it does, those little subtensions stay correct no matter what magnification you're on. So if you're at 6 power or 12 power or 16 or 18 power, those subtensions are always correct. 1 mil is always 1 mil. 5 MOA is always 5 MOA, no matter what magnification. Where with the second focal plane, it's only correct at maximum magnification. So you've got to crank it up to maximum magnification, then those subtensions are correct. Well, if your maximum magnification is 12, the only time that you would need the subtensions on there, the subtensions, the wind holes, is when you're shooting beyond 300 yards. Well, if you're beyond 300 yards, you're probably going to crank it to 12 power anyway. So if you're going to crank it to 12 power anyway, who cares if it's front or second focal plane? It doesn't matter because you're already at maximum magnification. So if your maximum magnification is 12 or less, who cares? If it's more than that, yeah, you need a first focal plane. You really do. The long range community is standardized on front focal plane for good reason, because you need that. Because if you've got a 25 power scope, you might be at 14 or 18 or 22. You need those subtensions to be correct. You absolutely have to. But again, if your maximum magnification is under 12, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, and on the low end with the first focal plane, you're just trying to shoot through like a crosshair made of hairs. It's so fine.
Yeah, very hard to see the reticle. So
yeah. So what if, let's say, in hypothetical land, a high-end manufacturer used Japanese or European glass, built a scout scope with the 10-inch eye relief, front or second focal plane, illuminated turrets, a proper reticle with wind holds, and maybe a slightly less complicated Christmas tree with good turrets in mills. Would you buy it?
at this point, probably not. And I really hesitate to say that. I would have to look at it. I am just so convinced that the biggest problem with these things is that long eye relief. I think that the long eye relief is such a problem beyond maximum point blank range that I can't see me using it. I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind at some point, and maybe that would fix some things. But right now, I'm thinking that long eye relief is just it's a deal killer for anything beyond maximum point blank range. But you can do a lot of things to it to help put the lipstick on the pig. But
yeah, I mean, German glass and good coatings goes a long way. So who knows? If some manufacturer, it's kind of like Vortex's podcast, like, oh yeah, blah blah blah, gun influencer calls us every week to make a high end scout scope. We won't, of course Vortex won't. They make most of their optics are low end anyways. But yeah, somebody, March, anybody out there, if they made a high end one, maybe it'd be worth looking at again. Like Cooper said, like the question has been asked, no one's been answering it yet. It might be possible, like a scope that has all the cool features you mentioned, all the decent features out of these, crossover scopes, but in a scout scope form. Hear me out.
I would look at it. I would look at it. It would be one of those. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll become enough of an influencer. They'll send me one to test. Then I can try it without spending my money. Because a scope like that would be at least a $1,200 scope. And I don't know that the scout rifle community is ready for it.
Yeah. I mean, hell, most of the hunting and most like average users aren't ready for that. A scope that costs as much as the rifle, that's still something people don't go for. And that's what it costs. Like long range shooting, other than that, the Makaira concept, it's kind of expensive. I mean, this rifle, the barrel costs as much as the rifle. It's like, you just pour money into these things.
Yeah, although this wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
The Steyrs have never been inexpensive. So
that's true.
I don't know. I could be wrong there, but I would have to see. I am so tired of the long eye relief and the handicaps that imposes beyond maximum point blank range. I would take some. It would take some convincing.
Yeah. That's tough. That's tough, Steve. That's tough. So we covered most of Debrief. Do you have any pluggables? What's your blog? You know, can I post your blog website? You have a WordPress blog. Can I post that on the comments?
Yeah, I've got a blog post site. It's Blogspot Cliffy 109. I haven't posted anything there recently, but I probably will soon. I just put up a new video of me doing the rifle bounce with the Sig Cross. I put that on my YouTube channel. That's Cliffy 109. And I've got a whole bunch of content on the Makaira project and trying to find the best general purpose rifle. So I've got a fair amount of content on that. It's hard to make money on YouTube with gun content.
I'm getting into the weeds. Steve, thanks so much for joining me on my YouTube channel and helping me debrief all this long-range shooting and general-purpose rifles. I'll catch you on the forums. I'll catch you on the Facebook group, huh?
Absolutely. And again, just thank you for everything that you've done for the Scout Rifle community. Your videos, I think, have just reinvigorated a lot of people. And even if I don't agree with it, and even if I don't think that it's the best choice, the fact of the matter is you're getting people talking, you're getting conversations going, you're getting people focused on it. And that's a good thing. And you've done a real service by showing people what their choices are. So great job on that.
Thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without Jan Sabo, Andy Langlois, Andy Reinhardt, and so many other members and the Scout Rifle community and the patrons of Patreon and all these other rifle shooters who just want to know. They want to have information. They want to dig deeper into these Scout Rifle topics, which is a big niche. It's a niche, but it's so fun to like revel in all these weird little, possibly dead end corners, but fun dead end corners.
Awesome. Well, good job, man.
Thanks so much, Steve. All right, I'll see you around.